What's going on, fellow co-creators? Hope everybody's having a wonderful and blessed day. So for today's video, we're going to be doing a couple do's and don'ts with 3D printing. We started this really cool samurai mask, and as you can kind of see, he didn't quite complete. We had a couple issues, and we're going to be going over and a couple of our fixes that have remedied the issues as well. And so as we're going over these do's and don't videos, we're going to show you guys how we went from having a couple mishaps and ended up having a couple failed prints that wouldn't even complete to, once we remedied our issues and figured them out, had a nice beautiful product such as this. So stay tuned, it's about to get real. So in this video, we're going to be going over kind of a lot of different do's and don'ts with your 3D printer. We actually have had our Ender 3 Pro. We named him R2-420. He's been down a little bit for the last couple days, and Uncle here has been going through everything to get him back up live and running. So we're going to go ahead and take you guys through a lot of these do's and don'ts here.
First thing that I want to mention about doing modifications is one modification at a time. The more modifications, the more factors you throw in there, the more difficult it's going to be to figure out which factor is causing your issues. So only change one thing at a time if you're experimenting or changing any kind of factors on this machine at all. It's very sensitive and it does not like a lot of changes. So one change at a time, okay? So, things that I've learned about this machine and how to keep this thing running. First of all, the guide path for the filament. We need to discuss that, and we're going to tear it apart piece by piece right now. First, we're going for the tip. Be very gentle. This can snap off at any time. Okay. Now this machine was just jamming up just a second ago, but the tip was jamming up a little bit, and here's a lot of the reasons why this happens, okay? One of the first things is having a clear guide path. So you want to make sure that this path is clear all the way from this end all the way through. You want to make sure there's not even a tiniest little bit of plastic left over. One of the best ways you can handle that is to pull this hose out. Okay. Temperature is coming up. So one of the best ways to handle this jam is to pull this hose off and carefully, because that end's hot, push this tube right through. Just like so. And you'll see on the end we have our jam, and we also have, a little bit of plastic on the outside of the tube too that we push through this end. And what happened is I got a little separation between the hose and the nozzle. You can't have any separation here at all, or you get some buildup in between, and that causes the jam up of the filament, and then you're stuck and you have to stop the print and start over again. Now what we want to do now is we want to take another tube and slide it right through there again, just to make sure we get all of the leftovers, because see, it's still fighting me a little bit. There's a little left in there. Want to make sure that path is super clean. That was better. Oh, you can see a little piece of plastic right there that get pulled off. So, now that we got that all cleaned out, we need to get the end of our tube fixed. You need one of these cutters here because it cuts a nice, clean, perfect flat edge, and you need that flat edge to butt up against this tip nice and tight so it doesn't do just what you see that it did there. See how it backed off the tube? Yeah, I can't stop shooting. Okay, so we cut this tube. And it is a good idea to run your filament through here just to make sure that it's clear as well, because you don't want any residue inside the tube. There we go. Okay. Now before you reinstall this tube and seat it back in there, you want to get a new head, and I'll put a new nozzle on it. But first you want to reduce the temperature so that you don't burn yourself while you do this, which has happened a couple of times. Now we're going to replace this nozzle now that it's cooled down. You want to make sure it goes in nice and smooth. If the threads are jammed up, you may have to replace this piece. I've had to do that once or twice. Now when you tighten this up, you want it really snug, but you also don't want to snap it off in there, so just be cautious. It is not steel. All right. You want this seated in place first so that you have a solid place to butt this tube up against. Then, because the machine sometimes backs your tube out and pulls it out of this clip, it leaves this nice little ridge on there, see? And so after we cut it back, then it's gonna grab in a different position so that it's not gonna slide again. So you always wanna at least cut it back or change your tubing out so that you're not gripping in the same position. Then you just slide it on in there, make sure it's nice and firm, down tight. Lift this clip up while you're holding it down, and then slide your keeper in. And do the same to the other side. Make sure it slides in nice and deep. Pull your keeper out. There you go. Okay. Now we have a clear filament path. That's factor number one. That has to be good. Otherwise this thing does not work correctly. Now I'm going to pause for a second and put this piece back together. We've already done this before, so we don't need to go over that again. Okay, next I want to talk about the tension here. This tension is vitally important, and it's very sensitive, okay? This tension has to be precise. If this tension is too tight, what happens is your filament will jam into the tube, and when more filament fills up the tube, then what eventually is going to happen is either going to back out the tube or it's going to jam up the nozzle. So that tension can't be too tight, but it can't be too loose either, because then you're just going to have loose prints and you're not going to have anything coming out of the nozzle. So the precision on this particular spring is vital to your prints and to jam ups. It will just help you to prevent jam ups if you get this tension right. So keep that in mind. The other thing I want to talk about with the filament is temperature when it goes into the nozzle. If your temperature is too high, then what'll happen is the filament will melt outside of the tip, and it'll glue itself around the front here and jam it up, because it's not supposed to melt outside of the tip, it's supposed to melt inside of the tip. And so if it's melting and jamming up a lot on this tip right there, then you need to turn your temperature down. That's causing part of your issues there. So temperature is also very key to keeping this machine running right. Okay, the last thing I wanted to talk about was the bed plate as well. You can see this print here. It was a beautiful print. It actually turned out very clean, but then my tip jammed up, and that's just is how it goes sometimes. You want to be extremely careful how you lift this plate off of here. If you kink the plastic, it will cause a little dent that you'll have to go over, and it can cause issues with sticking or causing your raft to build. And so anyway, you definitely want to be careful how you peel this off. The other thing is how you clean this thing in order to make it stick again and to where your prints are actually staying on there. I would suggest not using alcohol. Alcohol seems to leave a residue that it doesn't like to print against, and it doesn't seem to get all the oils off. I would suggest using soap. I've had good luck with Dawn soap, but I also must stress that it's a very, very tiny amount of soap that you put on this. Too much soap leaves a silky residue and your prints won't stick. So keep those things in mind when you are trying to print, and I hope that helps you with a lot of your issues. And I really hope that this was informative and that this helps you stay printing. And so rock on.
All right, so as you see, I mean, a lot of do's and don'ts that we're kind of going over today. Another one that we went ahead and actually looked and did some more research on too was the nozzle size, the actual, on your extruder, or sorry, on your hot end, the dimensions of your actual nozzle that's putting out the 3D filament. Standard, it's kind of 0.04. That's kind of what everybody's stock, 0.4. That's what everybody's stock kind of goes to. That's what everybody gets included usually with their 3D printers. And what most people print, most of their products with is 0.4. You can get all the way up to 1, like you can get 0.8 and you can just straight get 1 millimeter. And so the bigger the nozzle size, you lack a little bit in detail, but you do make up for that in strength, so your prints will be a lot stronger. The smaller nozzles, you'll get a lot better detail, but it's not necessarily going to be as strong. So a couple things to take in consideration. We were looking at a lot of videos, doing our research online and everything, and really the 0.6 is what we were super excited about to try. After seeing videos, seeing what we could do also in our slicer program, Cura, with 0.6 we can actually keep the same quality of level of prints that we were doing with our 0.4. And upgrading to the 0.6, not only, I mean, you tell them how much time it saved and everything else.
Cut hours off of prints.
Every single print we're saving time, saving filament too, honestly.
It also saves filament on the raft. It creates the raft with less filament when you use a 0.6, something about the program.
So we haven't tried necessarily too many other nozzles quite yet, but just with this do's and don'ts video, another thing that we did do was went ahead and upgraded that nozzle to a 0.6, and very happy with the results.
Oh, yeah.
Like extremely happy with the results, and the time that we do save on it matters, and it does make a difference for real. So
and it reduced
big
jam
plus.
ups too.
It did. That was, I mean, as you saw in the videos with everything that we've gone over, the do's and don'ts, that jam up in that 0.4, I mean, you're taking 1.75 millimeter filament and you're condensing it to 0.4. So you're melting it and putting it down this tiny little baby hole. The 0.6, even though it's not that much bigger, it's enough to really help the filament slide so much smoother out of that extruder nozzle and actually make your prints too. And it looks flawless.
Still maintain good quality.
And that's the best part, is really we wanted to make sure that quality could stay the same. And for everything that we've really printed so far, minus like miniatures and stuff, the standard quality that we're able to get with Cura is wonderful, and it really does a really good job with our prints. So very happy with the 0.6 nozzle. And we actually have another one of our really cool masks that we've been working on. It's a samurai mask that we'll be showing off here in a second that we're printing right now with the 0.6. I don't know what we did in Cura, but it turned out to be like a 1.5 day print. It was a very long print. I thought we had minimized it a little bit shorter, but the mask is quite large. You're going to see it here very soon, and it is really amazing. All right, so samurai mask just finished up here. Gonna go ahead and peel off our pad, get him off. There we go. Thank goodness for that magnetic build plate. And voila. All right, let's go outside. See this in the sunlight here too. And we're gonna grab, all right, it's kind of be popped out.
Yeah.
So we're gonna start there, pulling off these guys. There we
That's
go.
what I usually do, is just layer by layer.
Okay, there it is.
What?
Boom. And so,
Oh yeah.
that's a successful samurai mask right there. That's what I'm talking about.
That's amazing.
That is beautiful. clean up a little bit of the stringing, which honestly for how big this print was and the extruder knocking back and forth here, this little bit minimal stringing, we're gonna take a wet piece of sandpaper, go ahead and sand that all down, it will disappear, and this will be gorgeous and flawless just like the front. So hopefully this video has been a ton of fun for you guys. Hopefully you've learned a little bit more about our do's and don'ts for 3D printing. If you like what you saw, definitely be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Be sure to hit those notifications so you can see when we make other cool videos and make other cool products. Other than that, everybody have a blessed day. Have a good one. We'll see you on the next.